A second unmute. Sorry, technology. Whee! At least I wasn't a lawyer turning into a cat. Did you guys see that meme? Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first bonus class. I am so excited to finally be doing this. We're going to try to do something. It's not going to be me every time, but we're going to try to do something that's just a little bit extra uh, several times a year now. And just to open it up to those of you who either haven't had a chance to make it to our classes before or haven't had an opportunity to have a question answered. I just want to try to fill in the gaps. And we want to do a little bit of outreach out there just to make sure that this stuff is working for you. Or if you're new to this, that you actually have a soft place to land here and or a good launch pad because we really want everybody to get out there and have the best opportunities possible. So that's the purpose of this. It's going to be, like Ray Ronnie was saying, a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Um, and especially if you have been a regular in our classes, this is like the second half of our classes where it's a Q&A, very much voiceover directed. So rather than the old AMAs that we used to do where you literally could ask anything, this is a little bit more directed toward what we actually do and what all of us are trying to do out there. So hopefully you guys will find it helpful and take something with you that you can use. Before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick intro for our team behind the scenes because some of you haven't met everybody, and I absolutely could not do this. I would be helpless without them. And they're just some wonderful, amazing people. So, one of our people is not here tonight. Trina, who is my partner, who I established this with initially. She was the idea behind all of this. She's not here tonight. She's dealing with a health issue, but she sends her love. But everybody else is here. So, guys, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell everybody what you do behind the scenes, if you could. So maybe we'll start with Brandon.
Sure, yeah. Um, so as you may have guessed, I do a lot of the tech stuff for the classes. I run this part, the Zoom, but I do a lot of the video editing for the stuff on the site, the content, the behind the scenes stuff, and some of the website editing and various other technical things, problem solving. Uh, and yeah, so that's what I do for Blumvox. And then I'm also a theater actor as well, and occasionally film.
And he's my kid.
And that
Little
too.
nepotism
Yeah,
going on here. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, thanks, Brandon. And he has the same last name as me, so that makes it easy to remember.
True.
Um, Ray Ronnie, who you guys were introduced to in the very beginning here, has been with us for quite some time. I've known her for many, many years, and I love her. She's my sister. Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I think it's been about 6 years now. I started with Blumvox Incorporated before Blumvox Studios existed. And so that was working together with Steve and Trina and all of Steve's sort of world travels and conventions and all of those things that are now hopefully temporarily a part of the past. And we'll come back soon. But that was an awesome introduction into this world of Steve. So very fun, always been so delightful working with Steve and Trina, and just knowing he's not just a legend in voiceover, he's really a legendary person. And I think you guys that have been in class, you get that. You really get a sense of the huge heart that he has. But I'm not supposed to talk about him, am I?
No,
About
it's
myself.
about you.
Okay, so I was
Thank you.
an assistant for a long time, and then once Blumvox Studios started, began to help with the build out of what you guys experience in the classes and the Facebook community and copywriting. I'm now doing a lot on the sales and marketing side of things, and yeah, we are ever evolving, as you guys that are OGs know, ever evolving and really working hard in the background. I'm currently in New Zealand. I've moved back here. It was first temporarily last year, and now it is permanent. So I'm coming to you from tomorrow. It is Thursday, the 11th of February here. And I just want to tell you that the future looks good. Everything's going to be fine. And you guys are going to have a really great time tonight. I'm really happy that the Blumvoxes are able to be here too. That's really cool. So I'll pass it on over to our next team member.
Okay, so thank you for that. Yeah, she's at the bottom of the world. She has a much prettier view than I do. So it's a different time of day for you too. So lucky.
As,
Yeah, it's nice.
as you
Um,
can,
yes.
nice and
Uh,
light.
Next up is our own Gwendolyn King, who we met on the convention circuit, and we did a lot of crazy stuff all over the world. And finally, I snagged her, and she works with us all the time now. So, Gwen, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hello. I do conventions, love them. But I work a lot with Ray Ronnie. We work in tandem a lot with sales and marketing. I do a lot in the social community. I make graphics and I try and find engagement and ways to connect people. We're trying to be sure that we're always making new cool things for the Bloomboxers, which were officially Bloomboxers of the Facebook community. It's very cool. And I help Steve with his signings. We've been doing virtual signings. He has one coming up this weekend. Steve is doing a solo one at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and a duo with Mary Elizabeth Micklin at 3 p.m. on Saturday too.
Thank you for the shameless plug.
So yeah, copywriting, marketing, things, whatever's needed, kind of.
Sweet. Thanks, Gwen. And our newest member is John McKenzie.
Hello.
The genius behind the scenes. John, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I wish I was a genius. I probably would get paid a lot more for being a genius. Not from you. No, I understand. I manage the website and do a lot of the design work on the website and some of the technical work there, and that's basically what I'm up to.
Nice.
So if you find something wrong with the website, you can yell at me.
Blame John.
Blame John. Everybody does.
In Canada. Yes.
No, I'm in Massachusetts, so it's almost 10 o'clock here.
Yeah, but on South Park, everybody blames Canada. So
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Did I get everybody? I did, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Just watching for nodding heads. All right. So yeah. So we're gonna roll right into this. I think, guys. I didn't forget anything, did I? For the start of this? Nope. Okay. So like we were saying, it's just going to be a Q&A, and I just want to fill in the blanks for you guys and help you out if you're struggling, or give you some information to kickstart you, or help you keep moving forward. So let's let it rip, and the team will be choosing your topics at random and shooting them to me. And well, I guess you guys will just come up on screen and we'll go. I think that's how this is working. Yep.
Indeed.
All right. So anytime, let her rip.
Okay. So I'm just bringing up the first person. So Gwendolyn Spradling, hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Hi.
Gwendolyn has a question about treating a room. So Gwendolyn, whenever
treat it nicely.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry. Caught me a little off guard there. So I have a room set up right now where I'm trying to get traded, and I know a few things about what I should be looking at to improve that right now. But it seems like there's a lot of getting good information about like how to effectively trade a room seems a little hard to come by. So like I have some pointers, but still feel a little lost.
Okay. It's a great question. A lot of people are struggling with that right now, just because we're all working from home, and many of us were unprepared in the very beginning, and it's kind of overwhelming at first. There are a lot of different things you can do depending on how clever you are and how much room you have. You can build a little booth out of just PVC and moving blankets, and that's actually pretty effective if you don't have too much ambient noise outside. If you don't have, a lot of people running around the house and dogs barking and things like that, that can actually be a pretty effective way to do it. A good place to go to see how that's actually done is D. Bradley Baker's free website. It's called iwantobeavoiceactor.com. And D would set these things up wherever he goes. And he was traveling between several properties. He would actually build one of these little things with just some PVC pipe that just sticks together by hand, the kind of stuff you use for plumbing. and you hang moving blankets from it. That's a pretty simple solution. But I actually found something this last week that's really great and might be a little bit more expensive, but not as expensive as getting a real booth like this. There's something that I found called the Chaotica Eyeball, and it is a foam round piece that goes over your microphone and creates like a little treated sound chamber. And we bought two of them for Mary Elizabeth's room on the other side. She directs the next office over here. And she also does some auditions. She's a voice actor too. And her room is not treated like this. And so we set up an eyeball for her, and it's actually pretty good. They You have to buy them specific to your microphone. So she has two different ones. She has a Blue Yeti, and it has a little bit of a bigger opening on the bottom. Uh, and she has another one that goes over a TLM 103, which is a Neumann, which looks like that. But they have them for all different sizes and shapes, and I think they're about $200, something like that. So that's a pretty good solution. The other thing that we found that was pretty effective, and it was surprisingly effective, was a reflection filter. And there's a company called Monoprice that makes them. You can find them on Amazon for about $65, and it doesn't treat the whole room. But what it does is you put it behind the microphone, and it sort of wraps, and it has foam, and it has a metal backing, and the panels on the side actually fold around to enclose a little section for your microphone. So if you are in a room that's hard to treat, because some rooms really are hard to treat, especially if you have artwork on the wall or if you got big windows or things like that, it's tough to treat the rooms or high ceilings. So these are some solutions that you might be able to incorporate into your space that wouldn't cost you nearly as much as treating a whole room, and it might do the job for you. So check it out. Especially that reflection filter, that was very surprising to me. Um, I was doing a session last week, and even though I have really, really good gear here, they actually sent me a whole kit of stuff to use. And that reflection filter was the thing he insisted I use. And I actually put it up inside my booth. It was ridiculous. It was huge. It's big and it's heavy, and you have to have a good solid mic stand to put it on. But it actually did improve the sound to some degree. He wanted the door open in the studio because he wanted more of a live sound. But with that behind the microphone, it actually really improved the sound. So those are a couple things you could check out and try for your situation. And and if you get something like that on Amazon, you can just return that rather than a bunch of blankets that you've already put a bunch of holes into. So um, it's different, and every space is different too. So you have to kind of try things out. The nice thing about the eyeball, the Chaotica eyeball, is that it has kind of a built-in pop screen too, which is kind of nice. So I have this pop screen that I put in front of my large diaphragm microphones, but that has it sort of built in, so you don't even have to have that extra little appendage there in your space if you're limited for space too. So hopefully that's helpful. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right.
Gwendolyn. All right. Next up, we have Stephen Fair, and he has a question about avoiding mouth sounds. So, Stephen, whenever you're ready.
Hey, Stephen.
Steve, how are you?
Great, man. How are you tonight?
Good, very good. I have a really good sensitive condenser mic,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a really good space where the sound gets recorded well. But the microphone is so sensitive, even with the pop screen. Like I feel like I get a lot of like salivary sounds, and I try to stay hydrated, but I'm very noisy. And so my question is, how do you avoid mouth sounds? And then how do you, if those get recorded, like how do you remove them
Mm-hmm.
without making your edit sound funky?
Oh,
Does that make sense?
That's a really great question, and I am very guilty of mouth sounds. I was just editing something 5 minutes before we came into this session, and I make a lot of noise, especially if your mouth is dry. The best thing to do is really hydrate and try to minimize that as best you can. But one of the things that I find very effective is really just backing off on the mic a little bit, adjusting your level up if your room can take it, if you can do it without getting too much ambient noise. That's one way to mitigate it a little bit. Um, what kind of mic are you using, just out of curiosity? What brand?
It's a Scarlett. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's a Scarlett Focusrite Scarlett.
Well, that would be your DAW, but the mic itself, Do you know?
No, the mic that it came with the Scarlett Studio. It's an HP60.
Oh, it has its own thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that mic necessarily, but there are some mics that are more sensitive than others. That sounds like a pretty sensitive one. My Neumann is like that. It's very, very sensitive. I tend to edit a lot. Honestly, when I'm doing auditions, I edit stuff out. So the way that you can do the edits without it sounding like you edited is cut it right after the word finishes, before the next word starts. If there's a little space where a mouth sound or a pop or something comes in, cut it just after and then just before the next one, and then do a little fade out from the last one and a little fade in from the next one. And that will make it sound like more of a natural transition. Editing is a pain in the butt. It takes a lot of time. But in fact, I spend probably 10 times the amount of time and energy on editing than I do on the actual recording because my mouth is so noisy. One of the other things that I do, and it's gross. I mean, mouth sounds to me are just gross, especially if you're hearing it in headphones. But sometimes if the saliva is just really present on the mic, sometimes I'll just do like a slurp. I'll just go, and then I'll try it again, and it kind of clears it temporarily, and then you can hopefully get that sentence out. You might have to do it again after that. But some of the ways that you can lessen that is by making sure that you stay hydrated. Don't drink coffee. Don't have um, dairy products before you record. No sugar. No soda. Those things will all cause a lot of mouth sounds. Those kinds of things. Um, and if you have a green apple around, take a bite of the green apple, and that will mitigate some of that sound too. Um, so you just have to try a bunch of stuff until it works. But that editing thing, it's very time consuming. But I haven't really found a way around that, honestly. And the mouth noises really bug me when I'm doing auditions. I like to get them as clean as I possibly can, and it's worth taking that extra time, I think. And then when you're in a session, let the engineer do that. They're used to that. Everybody has mouth sounds, so it's not a unique thing to you. So don't worry about it. I mean, if a few things get in there, they know we're humans and our bodies make noise, so it's not really that big of a deal if you can't do it. Did that help? All right, cool. Awesome. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Stephen.
And by the way, guys, this doesn't have to be just, I know we called it the Tech and Tech class, which meant technology and technique. So it can really be about anything related to voiceover. I just did that to differentiate it from a traditional AMA where you guys might be asking, what my favorite line from episode 421 of Naruto is. So we're trying to avoid that kind of thing tonight, but we really do want to stay VO oriented, but it can be about anything VO really.
All right. So next up, we have a question from Christopher Marshall about the at-home signal chain. So Christopher, whenever you're ready.
Hello, Steve. I had a few questions.
Sure.
Particularly, what is your microphone preamp interface DAW of choice? And then I had a question about the dB range that you requested to record in, or what you usually utilize.
Well, the DAW that I use is an Apogee Duet. I love that. It's really quiet and I don't get any latency from it. I had several before I got that one, and I really love it. It's very, very solid. In terms of the DB, that's a really funny question because that came up yesterday in a session, and I didn't know the answer to it because I don't pay attention to numbers typically. I think he said it was ideally minus 18. Does that make sense? Okay, he said he wanted it between 12 and 20 for that particular session, but every session is different. I think it was at negative 18, and that was literally the first time I'd ever looked at that meter, honestly, in 30 years of doing this. So for me, it's either you want it louder or you want it softer. That's pretty much it, and I turn the dial. But I think that's where I was yesterday, if I remember correctly, and that was a pretty good range, and that was by that setting that visually looked about normal for a normal speaking tone. And of course, you have to pot it down if you're going to be projecting or possibly bring it up if it's a whispered thing. But that was a pretty good range.
Thanks, Christopher.
Cool. That's so funny that you asked that. I literally learned that yesterday. That's so funny.
All right. Next up is Virginia Lee. She has a question about energy. So Virginia, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Virginia.
Hi there. What techniques do you use to bring up your energy when you aren't feeling it for your performance? Like you're having an off day or you're tired or whatever.
That's such a good question. So many things. There's so many different things that you can do, and everybody's going to be different. For tonight, for example, I was really, really sleepy today. It was a really rough, long day for me. And I went out for a walk. I went out for a nice brisk walk for 10 minutes. And that, I was like a complete reset. I felt so much better. Um, I have used energy drinks. I don't like the big energy drinks. I'll do like a 5 hour energy or something equivalent to that. Costco has a really uh, reasonably priced version of that, and it doesn't make you all jittery. It's just a little thing. So I do keep those around for the times that I really can't get it together because sometimes I can't. You just don't feel it. A lot of it for me is mental, though. I will walk into the booth, and especially late at night after I've been recording all day and I'm really tired and I just don't feel like cranking out 10 auditions. I will kind of go through an internal mantra that I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And just doing that, just changing that mindset helps me to get in a little bit more of a grateful, humble mood to do the work when it feels like work, because sometimes it will. So those are the things that I do. Sometimes just jumping around. Sometimes I'll just do 20 jumping jacks. That just gets the blood flowing. Sometimes if we've been sitting around, especially if we've been editing all day or we've been working on something else, the blood just pools and it settles and whatever. And you really just physically have to get the blood moving through the body. So sometimes that will help. Sometimes a shower. I mean, we're at home, so we can do it. We're in studio, you don't have that option. But at home, just jump in the shower, take a 5 minute shower, rinse off, and kind of reset and shake things around a little bit. And I meditate too. I am a meditator, so I did that today. Also, it was a really sleepy day for me, so I did several of these things today to gear up for tonight, because I really wanted to be present with you guys. So I went outside and I meditated for about 20 minutes. But going outside, I think, is really one of the best things you can do, unless it's negative 40 below where you are. I don't know where you are, but that'll wake you up right away, I would imagine. Um, but that's what I do. Hopefully that will help you. But don't drink coffee. That's not good. Not if you're going to be doing voiceover. Wait till after, or give yourself an hour in between, because it's going to dry you out. And then Steve and I will make my mouth sounds. Steven,
Awesome.
sorry. I'm Steve. You're Steven. You're more formal than I am.
Awesome. Thanks, Virginia. All right. Next up, we have a question about mic technique from Lucas Slagle. So Lucas, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Lucas.
Hello, hello. I'm actually kind of surprised to be asking a question on here for the first time. This is a little nerve-wracking, to be honest.
That's what
Okay.
this is all about, dude. That's why we're doing this. You are exactly why we're doing this tonight. So welcome. We're really happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. So I was actually practicing some voice stuff for copy for a demo that I want to get made at some point. So
Mhm.
my main question is knowing when to record. Well, basically, you mentioned going off axis when dealing with plosives and raising volume, and you also mentioned, I think, during the class about different recording volumes depending on the latency. So, at what times is it better to know when to turn the recording volume down or just to go off axis for a particular take?
Well, you're going to hear it. You've got to wear your headphones as you're doing it, so you'll hear it in the headphones. If you got a big plosive, I've got a pretty good pop filter on here, so you're not going to hear it too bad. But you'll hear a plosive in your head, and also watch your meters. And if you see that it's really peaking, if it's hitting the very top of the meter, you know that your level's too hot, and it's going to sound crunchy on playback. So the advantage that we have again of working at home is that we can play it back before we send it out. So why not practice now? But you actually have the visual register of the wave file, depending on how you're recording. So you can see that. But more importantly, you really have to use your ears. And if it sounds like it's popping, or your S's are a little bit too sibilant, or you're getting a lot of mouth noise, just make adjustments. Either back off, go to the side, go off axis a little bit. Not with this kind of mic, because this mic you kind of have to be straight on. It's a directional kind of microphone. Um, but you're going to have to make those adjustments kind of on the fly sometimes, and especially if you are being your own engineer in the room. I always keep, I don't know what kind of DAW you're using, but on mine, I actually have a visual for the duet, and I ride my level all the time. I have a finger on the level at all times. And so if I'm in the middle of a session, generally speaking, the engineer is supposed to do that on the other end. But if I'm controlling my own volume, I'm going to try to pot it down, even if it's in the same sentence. I just did an audition before this where the character starts out very shy and quiet and he starts getting more excited and speaking louder and faster. And I actually had to pull the level down right in the middle of the line, and it worked. It was great. You just it's really good to practice with that so that you can do it smoothly and try to do that on the fly. Typically in a professional recording situation, somebody's going to be doing that for you, so you don't have to worry about it as much. But why not gain that skill set so that you can do it at home? All right, cool. And it looks like you have one of those booths that we were talking about with the PVC and the blankets, right? Yeah, that's what we were talking about. That's the thing. So well done.
Right. Next up, we have a question from Dante Carroll about breathing. So Dante, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Dante.
Hello.
I highly recommend breathing.
I am breathing.
Doing it.
My question, excuse me.
I said keep doing it. Keep breathing.
Oh, fine. Yeah. My question is, how exactly do you like speak from your diaphragm? Because I keep looking up and into it, and then it says like, oh, you have to do this technique, and then it says, oh, you have to breathe through your butt. And my question is, okay, so where the hell, excuse my language, like where do I even start to do this?
Well, first of all, you don't have to breathe through my butt. I've heard this expression before, breathing through the butt, and I actually learned that recently when I was working on some songs, and a lot of singers use that technique where they visualize breathing from their butt. Of course, you're not going to be taking in the air through there and blowing it out. It would be just bad for everybody concerned. But the idea is to do it from the lower part of your body, and one way that you can identify the diaphragm is if you breathe in through your nose, just breathe in through your nose and put your hand on your chest and tell me if you feel your chest rising when you do that. Okay. Now put your hand on your stomach and take that same breath in and see if you can do it and have your stomach raise instead of your chest.
Oh, weird.
Doesn't that feel weird? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can do it so that you can feel your stomach bulge out instead of your chest bulging out, you're 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 using your diaphragm, and that's where your support is going to come from. And the lower that you can get that sensation of the breath coming from in your body, the better support you're going to have. So also don't be afraid to take a really big breath. There are many times in the editing process, we were talking about editing mouth sounds and stuff, I will need to take a big breath to get out a really long sentence because some writers don't believe in punctuation. So one way that you can get through that is by breathing in through the diaphragm. And I'll do that just before a line. And then I can speak clearly and concisely and follow through with that entire line for a very long period of time without taking a breath. And it's kind of astonishing what you're able to create if you've got that support system behind you, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to do if you were just doing it from the chest or the upper part of the body. So that's what they mean by breathing through the diaphragm, breathing through the butt, that kind of thing. Breathing through the butt is a whole different thing, and some singers are really able to channel that. That's something I'm working on right now too, and that will change the tone if you can um, psychologically even visualize breathing from that far down. I think that is the thing that's really going to help you in your support. It's really a way of focusing, a visual focus tool, so that you're using the right muscles to support. I see Ray Ronnie shaking her head. She's a professional singer. Are you confirming this? Did I get that right? Okay, good. All right. Good. Did that help you? All right. All right. Make friends with your belly. Let it fly, man. And keep breathing.
Thanks, Dante. All right. Next up, we have a question from Amir S. about coming up with voices. So Amir, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Amir. Don't see you yet.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. I don't see you yet, but I think you'll pop up. There you are.
All right. Hey. Okay. Give me 1 second. So I just one thing that I've kind of struggled with a lot is figuring out how to go about making different voices.
Mhm.
So, like, how do you do that? Because like every time I I want to make up different voices, but it's I find myself kind of stumped.
Mhm.
Sometimes trying to figure out, I want to make sure it sounds natural
Mhm.
enough, but also like uh like believable. Like I'm actually believably a different character.
Absolutely. I understand this. And I'll give you a tip that Bob Bergen shares with his students all the time. And it's really about using your body. We have the advantage as voice actors to do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we couldn't get away with on camera. So, say you've got a character, they're asking you to do a character that uh, may be diminutive in size, but still has, a little bit of a guttural kind of thing, maybe like a goblin, for example. Um, to get myself there, I will actually do something physical. So I might hunch down a little bit and then kind of change the placement in the throat so it's not from that nice clear space. You might want to start tucking it in a little bit. So maybe push towards the back of the throat and change it up a little bit by possibly raising the pitch or lowering the pitch, putting a little bit more gravel in. And then think about what other kind of affectation you might want to put in there. Say the goblin has a big underbite. So you use that same technique and notice how my shoulders are changing, how my body is actually changing as I'm doing that. I'm actually kind of clenching my hands as I'm doing that. He might have an underbite, which means as he's trying to speak, he might be trying to communicate, and he's having a little bit of difficulty because he has a little bit of a vocal affectation there, and he might have the underbite coming up. They're getting gets in the way a little bit, and he has a little bit of a syllabus coming out on the side. And just by doing that, you see that I'm physicalizing all of that. Every bit that you are hearing, I am doing physically. So try that to get you into that headspace for the character, and the voice will follow. It's kind of magical the way that happens. And it works for just about any kind of character that you would do. So play with that, play with the physicality of it. But the thing that I would caution you about is concentrate less on uh, doing a different voice than embodying the character itself. And I'm speaking in terms of acting. You really want to get in the mindset of living in that character's shoes. What would you be experiencing as that goblin? What would your world, what would your perspective of the world be like if you were in that body? Everything might be a little bit more difficult for you. You wouldn't have the freedom to go into a restaurant and order a nice steak because they'd throw you out. Um, so, so that stuff might inform the performance as well. So a lot of it starts here, and then you work with the body, and then you kind of take that all inward. Does that make sense to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Cool. Yeah.
thanks.
Try that and see how it feels. You got to literally try on the skin of all these different characters that you're doing and live in their body to make that authentic. So don't be afraid to look really weird when you're doing it. And it's even more fun when you're doing it in front of the mirror, I think, because it helps to just get that stuff out of your body, and it helps to lose the inhibitions of doing stuff that feels weird to you. And then you don't worry about how you look because you're going to look ridiculous doing it. You saw how I looked, just ridiculous. Who cares? You do what you got to do to get the voice out. That's the most fun part about being a voice actor, is that we get to do that. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. That's a great question.
Thanks, Amir. All right. Next up, we have a question about studio setups from Laura Welsh. So, Laura, whenever you're ready.
Hi.
Hi, Laura. Hi.
Thanks so much for doing this, Steve.
Of course. Welcome.
Thank you. This is actually my first live question during a class, so I'm very excited that it's this question.
Yay.
I have been really enjoying staying at home and operating from my live studio or my home studio during COVID. I am very much an introvert, but I realized last month when I finally went to an actual physical studio for the first time in a really long time, I got the nervous jitters.
Oh.
Being in a studio I hadn't been in before, driving through LA traffic, all of that stuff. And I kind of felt stilted throughout probably the first 13, 15 minutes of like getting in there.
Hmm.
And I know that, you talk about getting in the sandbox and really feeling like you're enjoying yourself and getting into that headspace rather than being nervous about what other people are thinking. But are there any techniques you can suggest to just sort of either for people who've never been in a studio before and are getting that first booking, or for people who just don't go to an actual physical location very often,
Hmm.
to just get into that place you're most comfortable when you're in your little, at home studio and
Hmm.
doing what you do best?
Well, some of that work for me would happen before I'd walk into the studio. On the way there, I would sing in the car, I would meditate. There were some sessions that I was really, really nervous for. So I can understand what you're feeling. I've been through this. We've all been through this. Um, I remember there's a big session at Warner Brothers that I was doing years ago. And I was going to be working with some people who were just luminaries in the business. And I was terrified to go in. And so I stopped in the parking lot and I just sat there and I got there a little bit early, which we should all do anyway. And I meditated in the car. I just did. You can do it if you're not in a meditation. Just do a breathing exercise. I mean, one thing that's really helpful for me is we can all do it together, you guys, if you want. Just a very very simple breathing exercise. Breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold it for 8 seconds, and then breathe out very very slowly through the mouth. So let's try that for 4 seconds. Here we go. Cool. And use the diaphragm, Dante. When you do that, it was Dante, right? Um, yeah. Just doing that. It's kind of a yogic, meditative way of just centering yourself, centering your breath. So even if you only have a minute before you go into that session, you're feeling those jitters, go into the restroom for a second and do that. And that will help you to calm yourself down. Sometimes you can even do that. Usually, when you get into the room, they're setting up the mics and stuff and setting up your stand or whatever. So you do have that much time. And you saw how quickly that takes place. That alone can help you to reset. Do you feel better just after doing that? Yeah, it's amazing. And breathing techniques are kind of miraculous for just calming down the nervous system and helping you to center yourself. And then also the mental tricks too of just reminding yourself that everybody wants you to do well. They're not there to judge you. They're there because you deserve to be there. Especially if you book that gig, you deserve to be there. They really want to share a great experience with you. So remember that. Keep that in the back of your mind at all times. Take that with you, and remember that it's supposed to be fun too. A lot of us tend to put a lot of pressure. Oh, what if I screw up? Oh man, I don't know if I've prepared enough. They threw a new script at me. Throw all that crap out. This is about playtime. This is really, of course, we have to be professional in the booth, but the whole point is to have fun, and they're going to have fun on the other side of the glass if you're having fun. It's it's palpable. It's contagious. So hopefully that helps you. That's the kind of the short answer. But try that breathing technique if you really are in a situation where you just feel like it's careening out of control. Try the breathing technique, and it will really help to center you down again. Okay, you're very welcome.
Awesome. All right. Next up, we have a question from Kai Davis about managing voices. So Kai, whenever you're ready. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Kai.
We're unmuting yourself. There we
go. Hello there, Steve.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
Excellent. Your voice is in good form tonight, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've got a question about like managing all of like the voices. Matt Mercer offered his way, I believe, if I don't quite recall, but I'm sure you have to deal with like a bunch of voices and you got to put them in the back of your head. And like for like as the job demands, you got to be able to pull them out on the fly. Mm-hmm. And so my question is how exactly do you really, how do you like keep that voice, that like voice and like the various techniques associated with it in your mind and then just pull them out? Does that make sense?
That's a great question. It absolutely makes sense. Yes. And I remember in the early days, that was my big question. How do I recall that voice on demand? Because sometimes we will create a voice and we won't revisit it for a year or 2 years in some cases. Um, but your brain is a lot more powerful than you believe. It's registered in there somewhere. And what's going to get you there is practice. And you don't even have to be practicing that voice necessarily. It's just doing this work and muscle memory, getting to know your instrument. You've got a lot of muscles that you're using every time you create sound. And for me, in the very beginning, it was very difficult for me to be able to pull something out very quickly. There were sessions that I would work where I was doing something like Wolverine in the morning, and I'd be way down here. And then in the afternoon, I'd be working on Digimon. Give me a character like this. And I would have to remember physically where that character lived in my body. And sometimes it didn't come out immediately. They would have to, and here's the great thing though, is if you're working on a professional level, they're going to hopefully have reference files for you. So if they need to get you back into that character, they're going to play that for you. And if you've been doing this for a while, just from muscle memory, it'll come back on how to do it in terms of the technique. That part of it, that component, the technique component to that is just going to take time, and you're going to have to be patient with yourself. It took me probably 10 years before I was really, really solid and able to instantly pull something out. Um, Most people I would think would be a little bit faster. I didn't spend all of my time doing voiceover back in the day. I think it would have happened a lot faster if I had had techniques to use to help me to get there. And if I practiced more, because I just didn't practice that much. I didn't take it very seriously. I didn't think it was going to be a career. But practicing is really the thing that's going to lock that in for you, because you're going to feel where those voices live in your head. And, even if in the beginning, I would suggest if you're struggling with that, getting from voice to voice, maybe just take out a half an hour or an hour a week and record yourself doing the voices that are the most difficult for you to access, and feel what it feels like in your throat. Put your hand on your throat, put your hands on your neck, and feel what that feels like as it's coming out. And maybe make a mental note of where that's coming from, whether it's coming from the back of your throat or forward, or if it's a big broad character, you want to be able to stretch the character out, um remember the physicality about it too. And if it's a voice that you have trouble remembering, that maybe make notes about that. What did I do with my body, like we were talking about with Amir? If it is a big broad character, maybe you are opening your mouth bigger to get the sound out, and you are using the hands to speak, something like that. Make notes of what your body is doing when that character sounds great to your ear. If you've recorded it really well before, make those kinds of physical and mental notes, and just make yourself a little chart. uh, I did it. I wrote things like that on a day planner back in the day. Back when we used paper. I would actually make little notes next to the character about certain attributes of the character. I would say the character's 350 pounds, and he's got a lisp, and he speaks with a Cantonese accent, whatever it was at the time. Um, and those notes would help me to lock back in. But typically, after you've been doing that for a while, and if you've been doing it long enough, just a vocal reference, just hearing it again, your ears are the most powerful tool you've got. Just hearing it again is going to help you to lock in on that character and get centered again. Okay, cool. Great question. I struggle with that for a long time, buddy. So I know how you feel.
Thanks, Kai. All right. Next up, we have a question from Amanda Sims about recording. So Amanda, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi. Am I good? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't
Awesome.
see you yet, but you'll pop up. There you are.
Hey. No, so this actually my first time asking a question, second class ever.
Yay, welcome.
Thank you. I have a medical condition. It's not allergies, but it leads to my sinuses absolutely running havoc every time we have a cold snap, which I live in Texas. That's all we have are snaps.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be the only person going through something like this, where it's like, oh no, my sinuses have decided I'm gonna have a postnasal drip, or I'm blocked up here, and you need to record. What are some ways to get around that, since that's such a physical thing?
It is a very physical thing, yeah. A lot of us struggle with that when we get colds, no matter where we live. And sometimes that can work to your advantage as long as it's replicatable. That sound is replicatable because sometimes it can add a unique quality to your voice that you didn't have before. You just have to be able to remember with the muscle memory how to get back to that place. But one of the things that I found very effective is to use a vaporizer, especially if you're in a place like Texas or the desert. Any desert area is you're going to experience that. Have some sort of aerosol hydration going on in your room wherever you are, wherever you sleep, especially wherever you sleep. That's going to really help you. It actually will help to keep you hydrated to prevent uh, getting colds. Um, there is, oh, I can't remember what it's called. There's a handheld device that I have, battery operated. You can look them up. If anybody finds it, maybe pop it into the chat. I've spoken about it in one of the classes before. It's a handheld device and just has a little mask on there, battery operated. You can charge it and just put it up over your nose, and it has these little capsules of purified water in them. And singers use them all the time, and they'll hold it up and do a little vaporizing session just before they go on stage, and it's magical. I learned it from Logic, the hip hop guy, who was doing these arenas from all over the world. And I walked into his dressing room, and he had one of these things on his nose. And I said, "What is that?" Because I had seen people with vaporizers in their rooms and before they would go on stage, but this thing was so portable. It was amazing and very, very helpful. He said sometimes he would be completely blown out from the night before, and he'd have to go on stage, and he would use this thing to bring him back to full power. Um, that will help to clear the sinuses. I think that's, I'm not a doctor. I don't know stuff like that. But the other thing that you can do, a very quick and easy thing that you can do is just take a hot shower too. I've done that before if I've had a cold or if I have some allergy kind of situation happening, or working in a very dry climate. I get that when I go to Arizona a lot, and I will jump into the shower before I do my auditions, and it makes a world of difference. And especially if I am in a hotel room and I have to create a little sound space, I'll throw a comforter or a towel over my head, and that will help to keep the moisture in too, just for the time that you're recording. And then you can let all that go. That might be another trick that might help. So moisturize is the secret. Yeah, moisturize. Exactly. And there are other things, you can do Afrin and stuff like that, but I don't like to do any kind of stuff like that, putting it in my body. I'd rather do it as naturally as I possibly can. And one other thing that you can do is heat up a pot of water and put a towel over your head and just steam yourself. That sometimes helps too.
Thanks,
Okay,
Amanda.
good luck and let it drip.
Right. Next up, we have a question from Koichi Liu about demos. So Koichi, whenever you're ready.
Hey, Koichi.
Aloha, Steve. Aloha, Steve.
Aloha.
Long time no see.
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I just want to thank you first and foremost, you and Mary Elizabeth, for bringing me onto these classes. It was kind of the kick in the pants that I needed
Yay,
to kind
good.
of reinvigorate my passion. I just finished watching your class on demo reels with Chuck Duran. That was really informative.
Yeah, he's great.
And I thank the Blumvoxers for giving such a big resource on the voiceover resources. And there was a great long list of demo producers, and I just checked a whole bunch of them out. Looked really great and everything. But
awesome.
As someone who's going for their very first demo, I want to kind of know, would it be good to be gung ho about going after a certain type of demo, like a commercial or an character demo, versus kind of waiting a little bit until you get more credits under your belt? Because there's some casting directors that kind of ask for a demo.
Yeah,
that.
That's a great question. It depends on what you're going after, what your main focus is going to be. The demo producers that I've spoken to would always recommend doing a commercial demo first, because that's your moneymaker for a lot of people. That's the thing that's going to sustain you financially. Personally, for me, that was actually the last thing I did because I didn't like doing commercials. I still don't like doing commercials. But a lot of people are really built for it. You've got a great voice for commercial, and that might be a great moneymaker for you if that is some motivation for you. I always say don't do this for the money, but if you are looking for a way to get in to do this on a professional level, that might be your first and best investment initially. You are still living in Hawaii, is that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So uh, it's going to be a little bit tougher to break into animation and video games, especially the high level stuff from a distance. Even now, I think during the pandemic, however long this is going to last, it's still going to take time. It's going to take probably more time to break into that than it would commercials. So you might as well wet your feet on that. And if you are going to be investing in that, try that first. Or audiobooks, that kind of thing. You could do maybe one for audiobooks or narration, that sort of thing, because that it seems like there's a wider net of availability for you to work as an actor in those areas than there might be in animation or video games right away. All that said, if you really love animation and video games, and that's something that you are super passionate about, um, of course, you'd want to have a really good demo, but make sure that you're ready because it's, as you know, demos can be very expensive, and a good demo is going to be expensive. It just is because it has to be playable next to any of us who've been working in this industry for a number of years and working all the time. A casting director has to play that side by side with my demo, and it has to be the quality. Of course, it's going to sound different, but the quality has to be just as good. The quality of the characters, the quality of the performance, all of that, and the recording. It all has to be able to sit on the same shelf. So just keep that in mind. Whatever kind of demo you're ultimately investing in, it has to be top quality, and the stuff that you put on your demo has to be excellent. It can't just be okay. It has to be excellent because you are going into a competitive market now where excellence is expected, and excellence is easily achieved by the casting director. So, I always say also that demo should be one of the very last things that you do in your process before you launch yourself out there because it is such an important investment of your time and money, and you do have to upgrade it from time to time too. But I would say if you really have to make a choice financially, especially between what kind of demos you're going to do is the one that launches you out there. I would probably suggest commercial, just because your best chances are going to be with that, I would think. And especially if you're not in the union yet, because most commercials are non-union now. 80% of commercials are non-union. So that casts a much wider net for you guys who have not joined the union yet to get going. All right, cool. And aloha, nice to see you again.
All right. Next up, we have a question from Eric Horowitz about editing. So Eric, whenever you're ready.
Hey, Eric. Where are you?
Hey, Steve. I'm right here.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Well, I'm gonna do this real quick as well.
Are you gonna dance?
No.
Oh, you look like you're about to launch
I'm gonna say-
Oh, look how big you are. Oh my God. Wow.
You're saying how big you are.
What are you feeding that kid?
Everything and anything possible. You should see the other one. So when it comes to editing, I'm sorry, I'm moving around real quick. How much should you edit out of a audition in general? Come here.
How much should you edit out?
But, yeah.
Oh my God, look how tall you are. Wow. Unbelievable. You guys look amazing. You look amazing.
Say hi, you can.
Hey, Steve.
You're so much more handsome than your dad. Don't tell me that.
That's perfectly fine. I don't care. Yeah, so I mean, a while ago, Bob had answered this as well about, like somebody said, do you take breath sounds out? And he said, no, we're human, which I completely agree with. But when you're sending in an audition, how much should you edit down?
It's such a great question. Mary and I talk about this all the time because she believes in leaving everything in. Mary doesn't edit one nuance out ever. She leaves all the breaths in, and that's perfectly acceptable. It really is. For my ear, just because I do so many auditions, I can't stand the sound of the mouth sounds and the breaths, so I edit everything. I will leave with this caveat. I will leave breath sounds in if it sounds like I would not be able to produce that sound without it naturally. So I did an audition yesterday, and it was an 8-minute long audition. It was ridiculous, so much copy, and there were certain sections in there that to make it sound natural, it had to have the breaths in. It was a requirement to my ear. So I would say base it on what sounds the most natural. That's always the barometer for me. Is if it sounds most natural with the breath in, leave it in. One thing that I do, because I don't like to have big huge breaths, and I take big huge breaths, as we were talking about before, is sometimes I will lower the volume of that breath and leave it in. And you can do that in post. I don't remember what kind of DAW you have, but you can do that pretty easily in post. Just grab that little section, bring the volume down of that breath alone, and leave it in there. And I've actually been doing that a lot more recently than I had in the past. I used to cut out absolutely everything. But as long as they're not super invasive, they expect it. They just expect to hear breaths. It's like Bob was saying, we are human. They know we're gonna breathe to make the sounds. And even with some of the mouth sounds too, it's still acceptable to do in an audition. But I always think in terms of the casting director who has to listen to 200 or 500 auditions. And if they're hearing a bunch of really raspy breathing, especially if you have a sinus condition going on, or you have, some lip smackiness, that kind of stuff going on in between, which grosses me out, I will definitely cut that crap out. But keep it authentic, whatever it would sound like to be most authentic. I would choose authenticity over anything. Always use that as your default. All right, cool.
Awesome.
All right, nice to see you guys again. Keep eating whatever you're eating. You look great.
So I do want to point out it's 7:37. We started around 6:40.
Yeah, let's go for another. You guys up for another 15 minutes?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
15 minutes. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I just feel like we're on a roll here. I want to
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sure that we get enough questions.
There's plenty of questions. So.
Okay.
All right. So next up, we have a question about submitting auditions from Andrea Ems. So Andrea, whenever you're ready.
Hey,
Hi,
how's
Andrea.
it going? I'm a new student and a first timer here, so very excited.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you. I'm a full-time audiobook narrator getting back into VO. So especially when it coming into self-direction, when you're by yourself, um, what is the best way to know when maybe try it one more or self-edit, stop being perfectionist and just submit it? Does that make sense? And knowing which ones to choose when you do like 40 different takes.
That's a really great question. And by the way, I have nothing but respect for you doing audiobooks, because that's one of the hardest things to do. I mean, you know what you're doing. You know when it sounds right, and you probably have to edit for yourself too, right? Yeah, so you're going to know. I go by gut. I'm a very organic kind of actor, and typically I'll do 2 or 3 takes for most things that I do, and I'll listen back to it. And if there's one that I wouldn't buy, I just kind of close my eyes and I sit back and I really take myself out of it and take a 30,000-foot view of how that character might be living and breathing in that environment. And if I don't believe me, nobody else is gonna. So I think that's the default that I will go to, and the rest of it just takes practice. I mean, honestly, you really just have to practice. But you got this. I mean, you really got this, because what you're doing is probably the hardest work there is, I think. It's very, very difficult to do audiobooks, and you're just going to know instinctively if it's going to fly or not. You have to keep that reader's attention. You have to keep them engaged in that world. And if you apply those same principles, whether it's commercial or animation or video games or whatever that environment is, if you've got to step it up, you're going to be doing a lot louder performances, bigger performances than you're used to. So that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. So technically, it might be a little bit different for you and your placement on the mic and that sort of thing. But in terms of the performance, you've probably got the acting chops down, which is 99% of it. So I would take the pressure off of yourself and trust yourself, trust your gut. And if you, if you feel like you need to bounce it off of somebody, hopefully you have somebody around that, especially the first few auditions that you do, bounce it off of somebody that you know and trust that isn't going to blow smoke up your butt. Have them brutally honest. Do you believe me? Just ask them that. Do you believe this person? And listen to their response. And if they don't believe you, maybe take another crack at it. But you really have to put yourself in the position of an audience member who's never heard this ever before. And if they really believe that character is alive and well in whatever environment they're in. So, but you got this. You got this. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Next up, we have a question about the industry from Jennifer Lattimore. So Jennifer, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Steve. Can you guys hear me?
I can. How you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm a first-time student, and this is my first live class. So I'm really excited to be here.
Welcome. We're really happy to have you.
So my question is pertaining to the animation portion of the voiceover industry. A little background. I signed with my theatrical agent about 5-6 years ago, and I joined their voiceover department about 2-3 years ago. And even more recently, like 2 months ago, I just started getting consistent auditions for animation VO work, which is super exciting, but that means I've kind of been learning on the audition job, also in the union, so I didn't get the opportunity to do non-union work. And I get the impression that the animation side of the industry is extremely, extremely, extremely competitive. And you kind of alluded to this a little bit in your answer to Koichi's question, but I'm wondering if you can kind of shed some light on, is it really that insular? Is it competitive where like the same people who are awesome are getting used over and over again? Because you like to work with people that you like to work with. So I'm just wondering if you can kind of shed some light on that and whether I'm crazy for not having booked a job in 2 months.
Yes, well, you have to think that, especially with people with home studios now, it used to be that there were maybe 10, 15 studios in town, casting agencies in town that were listening to, maybe 50 different auditions for a role. Now they are listening to 500 auditions for a role from all over the country, in some cases from all over the world. So in that sense, yes, it is a lot more competitive, and especially for a female. Um, that is getting better, by the way. It's actually getting better. Most of the animation roles typically have been male oriented, but there's a new trend now, not just to bring female voices in, but I did an audition yesterday where they sent me a full page of auditions, and they had different sides for every single character, no matter what the name was, for female, male, and non-binary. And I thought, hallelujah, finally they're doing this. It's fantastic. So the opportunities for you are bigger and better than they have ever been in the history of this business, which is the opposite of what I heard when I got in. My agent said, welcome to the business. You're going to have a tougher time than anybody ever has because it sucks right now, especially in the union, because commercials were changing. Everything was changing over. You are correct in the fact that for many, many shows, the casting directors will go to their Rolodex of people that they know and trust because it's less work for them. Frankly, it's just easier for them. That said, there is so much new content out there that they are looking for younger, fresher, more natural sounding performances. They don't want a voice actor's read. They want a natural green sounding performance. Mary Elizabeth is directing 2 shows right next door as we speak, where she was saying that they want green actors. They want that green sound. Even if they aren't green, they have to be able to sound like they just pulled them off the street. They might not be pronouncing all the words, and they might be stumbling over things. That's the trend. That's what so many of these shows are looking for. So you're actually coming in the best time in history, and the most wonderful thing of all is that so many of these shows are incredibly inclusive. I won't read for non-binary. I won't read for uh, Asian characters anymore. I won't read for Black characters anymore. We all used to read for everything, but I just won't because I didn't know that by doing that it was restrictive to people who are not as able to reach out and grab everything that's out there, all the possibilities that are out there. So again, this is just the best time in history for you to be getting into this business. So if you're not booking something for 2 months, don't worry about it. It's okay. I signed with a new agency a couple months ago, I guess now, and I just booked my first thing yesterday with them, and it went away because they decided to go in another direction. Okay, that's how it goes. Don't let it get you down. Just keep doing the auditions. As my dear friend Jack Angel always said, the audition is the job. And especially coming from theatrical, you might think that it's not as competitive. It is. It is. There's just a lot of people out there doing this. Um, but just concentrate on you. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing, because there is no one else out there like you. You are unique, and what you're bringing to the party is you. So you want to bring that quality to every audition in the best way possible. Even if you are doing like the goblin that we were talking about before, bring a little bit of Jennifer into that. So that they hear that unique quality in your voice that's gonna just sing out. It's gonna cut through if you just trust yourself and believe in that. All right, and be patient, honey. It's gonna take some time. It just is. We're with you.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right. Next up, we have an equipment question from Chelsea Deno. So, Chelsea, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Chelsea.
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Hi. How are you guys doing?
Great. Welcome.
So for me, here I'm gonna take my earbuds off because I have you on my phone and my computer. So
Okay.
So my question is, I went to school for acting and I've been your student for about 2 years. So I feel very comfortable with my acting training, but I haven't really been shown anything really remotely, like when it comes to like microphone techniques. I'm not familiar with mic equipment or, mixers or anything. So I wasn't sure if you can show it or tell us what it is like, or how can we learn that aspect? Like, what can we do for that?
Well, it used to be in the old days that you could actually go into a music store and you could try out a bunch of different microphones. We don't really have that luxury anymore. So, what I would suggest do you have any equipment at all? Any recording equipment at all?
I do not.
You don't? Okay. So, what I would suggest in the beginning is to get yourself something that's inexpensive. You don't need to get anything fancy, especially because you'll only be auditioning in the very beginning. You don't need broadcast quality. So you can find a USB microphone. I would suggest getting a USB microphone in the beginning. You can get them for, in some cases, under $100. Uh, there are a few that we recommend. There's one that's just called the Mic by Apogee. I think that one's about $200. It's a little bit more. Blue makes a couple really nice ones. Um, uh, the AT2020. There's an God, I can't remember the brand name, but AT2020 is a kind of a nice microphone. There's a bunch of nice little starter microphones that you can use for podcasting or making videos, that kind of stuff to get yourself started. There actually are a few people who are secretly using those as their broadcast mic too. If they treat the room right, you can get away with it. Um, I would recommend upgrading once you get to that point, but in the beginning, you don't really need a lot. You're also coming in a time in history where you don't have to spend a whole lot on equipment right away, and I never recommend people do in the beginning. It's just silly. It's unnecessary. So with just a good little USB microphone and whatever recording device you have, if you have a phone, you can get an app that I recommend called Twisted Wave or Audacity, or there's so many of these little recording apps that are really user friendly. You can just do it on your device or your iPad or whatever kind of device you have and record directly into that. You don't need all of the outboard gear in the beginning. Don't worry about that. Work on uh, really working on your mic technique and on learning to transfer your skills as an actor into the microphone as a voice actor, because it is a bit of a different skill set. Practice with that. Get comfortable with that. I know that you said you're comfortable with your acting skills, but working as a voice actor is a whole different animal, and getting used to the sound of your voice and manipulating your voice and building characters and being able to create an eyebrow raise without the physicality of it. Uh, all of that stuff is going to take time. And so why not take that time on stuff that you're not spending a fortune on, and it might be the wrong purchase in the beginning anyway. And after you do that, you'll kind of get a sense of where you want to go in the industry, whether you're more inclined toward commercial or animation or video games or narration, um, audiobooks, whatever. And you'll be able to buy the proper equipment for that. For me, I started out on a Shure. My first big fancy mic was a Shure KSM 27, which was a $300 microphone. I got it used, I think, for $100, and I got a little a Pro Tools. It was like the free Pro Tools thing, and I bought an interface that was like $99, and it worked. It was great. I used it for 7, 8 years before I upgraded into fancier equipment, and it was actually broadcast quality. I was recording Toonami on that in a closet, and so don't spend a whole lot of money in the beginning. Just get the bare necessities that you need. And one thing that you can do is go to D. Bradley Baker's website, wannabeavoiceactor.com. It's free, and he has a bunch of information in there on microphones that he likes and setups that are not too expensive, but will really get the job done in the beginning. And again, most of the thing you have to concentrate on when you're getting a cheaper microphone is really treating the sound around the microphone in the room, just to make sure that you get the best possible quality out of that microphone that you can. And I will, before I advanced to a fancy rig, I used to take my little Apogee mic and I would bring it with me on the road, and I would just make a pillow for it and throw a comforter over my head. And I had close to broadcast quality. And in a pinch, I actually recorded 4 broadcasts from that little setup with my iPhone and that little tiny microphone and nothing else. So don't worry about it. Just don't stress out about it, and take a little bit at a time. This is a patience game too. All right, cool.
Awesome.
Welcome to the family.
Do you want to do one more question?
Yeah, we'll do
we're
one
at
more.
about 15 minutes.
Sure.
Okay, so our last question of the night is a Taft Hartley question from Heath Martin. So Heath, whenever you're ready.
Hey, Heath.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I wanted to say congratulations to you. I heard you booked something.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It seems pretty cool. I have a question. I'm not in a huge hurry to go union.
Yep.
So, in your experience, have you ever known a casting director to bring on an actor through Taft Hartley that was just because the actor was phenomenal in some way?
Yes, I have.
On video games or animation.
Mhm.
And could you tell me how that experience was for that person?
Well, it was daunting at first, because once they made the decision to go, I don't want to out the person who it was, but the person that I'm thinking of anyway. But once they were allowed to join the union through a Taft Hartley situation, it was a little bit scary because it meant that they needed to stop doing the non-union stuff. And that can be financially devastating if you've got a pretty good non-union thing going. So I would not join the union until you really need to. If the gig is that good, then go for it, I would say. But kind of judge it by how good that gig is, and also have a conversation with the person who is willing to Taft Hartley you. And sometimes they can give you a little bit of insight on why they chose you and why they think that it's a good idea to join the union. I would have a conversation with them, because if they're willing to Taft Hartley you, they really like you and they think that you're ready to just bust out and go. When I finally made that decision to get Taft Hartley, it was really rough, because I was working a lot of anime at the time, which didn't really pay that well, but I was working a lot of it, and a few video games and things too, a few video game franchises, and I had to stop. I had to quit. And through that year, I remember that first year, and the first year, maybe even the second or third year, I was turning down 30, 40, in some cases $50,000 of work a year, because I wanted to keep my promise to the union. You know, that rule 1, you don't do the non-union work. It's a tough choice. And I had to get other outside work to support me financially through that. But everybody goes through it. Every single person that you have ever seen in this business has gone through that. So know that you're not alone, and it sucks and it's scary, especially if you got bills. But don't do it until you absolutely have to. I would wait. Did that answer your question? All right. Yeah. Hang in there, buddy. And you're so good. I feel that you're right on the cusp anyway. You're just gonna start flying really, really soon. So when it does happen, I think you're gonna be just fine. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate you being here.
All right.
All righty then. Well, I think that's it, you guys. That was actually really fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you guys are taking something away with you. The Q&A portions of our classes, for those of you who hadn't been to one of our regular classes, are just like this. The rest of the class, now we have our guest who I basically do an interview with for the first half of the class. and we get their insight, and they know a lot more about what they do than I do. So it's always good to get expert opinions from people that I know and love and trust and fanboy over. So that's the advantage and the difference in that kind of class than this is. But honestly, I feel like the best information comes from your questions. Even when I'm interviewing these guys, and I think I'm coming up with the best questions of all, you guys always make my brain meat work, and I really, really appreciate that. And I think we'll probably do this again because this was fun and it went by a lot faster than I thought it would. So thank you guys so much for all of you Bloomvoxers. Thank you for being there for each other. I don't get to say that to you nearly enough. I really, really appreciate you guys being there for each other and providing the information that I can't because I'm not necessarily in the situation you are. And so many of you guys are in the trenches, especially with the non-union stuff, because it's not my world anymore. And all the stuff that's happening on the side in the Discord, and you guys are having meetups and things. It's just wonderful. I'm so grateful that this worked, and you guys are actually taking this to the next level on your own. That was the whole point of all of it. So I want you guys to have a great experience out there. If you get stuck, hit somebody up on that Blumvox feed, and I know that Bob Bergen is going to jump in and answer before I can. And I trust him. Anything that he says in there is going to be gold. That's why you don't see me jumping in there as much, because Bob is just too fast. He doesn't sleep. So you're getting advice from the best in the business. And for all of you in the classes, thank you for being here tonight. I hope this was helpful for you too. And I hope it gave you a little bit more of an opportunity to be seen and heard. So hopefully we'll do this again pretty soon. Team Blumvox, do you guys have anything to add before we close for the night?
Just want to make sure everyone knows that there's another class next week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have Phil Lamar coming in next Tuesday night. That one is one of our regular classes, so it's going to be exclusive to Teaching Series members. But if you're not signed up and you want to join that class, there's still time. So.
Yep. And Gwen was mentioning a signing this weekend, and there's no obligation to do anything in the signing, but I am going to be doing a concurrent Instagram live with these signings, and you guys can always hop on there and hang out with people on Instagram. It's actually a pretty fun experience, and I'm not one of those schmucks who just sign a bunch of stuff and push it to the side. We tell stories in there, and we do read the comments, and we actually try to make a little mini party out of the thing. So check out the Twitter feed or Instagram or whatever, and you guys can find out where that's happening. The company is Streamly that puts this thing on, and they're really cool. Streamly is really cool. They're doing some really great stuff. So just a shout out to them for even organizing all of this. And Gwen will be curating all of that. So be nice to her. Okay, guys.
And also, if you're looking for more information about voiceover and just Team Blumvox and just general information, and you're not a student, or even if you are a student, we have blogs. Steve writes blogs, and they're available on the website for free. Anyone can access them, even if you're not on Facebook. And then there's also some Team Blumvox blogs too. So check those out. There's a lot of free resources that we put out there, just to be sure that you're learning and growing.
Yep. That's the whole point. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic night. Take care of each other. Stay safe out there. And I'll see you guys soon.
See you. Goodbye.
Good night.